Good morning, Year 11, and welcome today to your conflict and tension walkthrough for question 2 on the conflict paper. So, as with any of our questions, the first thing we need to do is analyse the question and work out what the question is asking us to do. So question 2 will always start off and ask you about sources B and sources C. So first thing you do is read the question, study sources B and C in the sources booklet. How useful are sources B and C to a historian studying the Treaty of Versailles? Explain your answer using sources B and C and your contextual knowledge. So, as with any question, the first thing we need to ask ourselves is what part of history is the question asking us about? And it's asking us about the Treaty of Versailles. So this question in particular is asking us about the Treaty of Versailles. Then I ask myself, what else is this question asking me about? And it's really clear, it's asking me how useful are sources B and C. So I know that the question's asking about the Treaty of Versailles, it's asking me to use sources B and C. Is there anything after I've analysed the question that will help me in reminding me how to structure it? Well, there absolutely is. And it tells me here to explain my answer using sources B and C. So I know I have to use sources B and C. And I also have to use contextual knowledge, which is my own knowledge. So I know that this here is what the question is asking me about, and this here is the structure. So for me to do this effectively, I need to have knowledge about the Treaty of Versailles, and I need to be able to analyse sources B and C correctly. So I'm going to have a look now at sources B and C. But just before we go on, I'll notice that this is 12 marks. You should be spending around 15 minutes on this question. You should also be taking around 3 minutes to plan it. So to look through your sources, to take the time to look through those sources. So with sources B and C, you need to first of all just read through both of them. And remember, all of it is sources B and C. So source B says it's a German newspaper cartoon published in July 1919 entitled Clemenceau the Vampire. The figure on the bed represents Germany. So straight away from that, I know that the vampire here is Clemenceau, who is the leader of France. And here, I know that this woman here is Germany. So that's just what I can get straight away using the writing and the image. So before I move on to source C, I now need to analyse. And remember, for a source question, we use the C, suggest, own knowledge. And if I can see Clemenceau, basically, and what he's doing here is he is sucking the blood out of Germany. So Clemenceau, I'm just going to write some notes. And this is exactly what you should do. Sucking blood from Germany. Okay. So what does that suggest? Now, we're not asking what it suggests about Clemenceau or what we're asking about sucking blood. What it suggests is we need to link it back to the question. And the question, if we look, is what it suggests about the Treaty of Versailles. So what does it suggest if Clemenceau is sucking blood from Germany about the Treaty of Versailles? Well, it suggests that the Treaty of Versailles, and I'm going to forgive myself, damaged Germany, and that Clemenceau was a key part in this. And then I would think, right, what own knowledge do I have that I know that the Treaty of Versailles damaged Germany, and that Clemenceau played a key part in it? Well, I know that Clemenceau wanted revenge. I'm just going to jot down some notes here. 6.6 billion. We could have also had, this ended up them raising taxes, further damaging Germany, hyperinflation. I'm just going to jot down some notes there. And that is how you analyse a picture source. You use what is in the picture, a quick see, suggest, own knowledge to help you plan your answer. And you do exactly the same with source C. So if I go down to source C, it's from J.M. Keynes' book, The Economic Consequences of the Peace, published in 1919. Keynes was a leading economist who worked for the British government but resigned in protest 3 weeks before the Treaty of Versailles was signed. And he said, nations should not morally visit on the children of their enemies the wrongdoings of parents or of rulers. The treaty includes no provision for the economic recovery of Europe, nothing to make the defeated Central Powers into good neighbours. The Big Three were preoccupied with other issues. Clemenceau to crush the economic life of his enemy, Lloyd George to bring home something that would be acceptable for a week, the President to do nothing that was not just and right. So again, we can use this information to help us work out what is happening here, but we don't write about this. Okay, we don't take a quote from this, we take a quote from this. So what can we see? What does it suggest? And what own knowledge do we have about what it suggests? Well, first of all, we need to think and look at something that it tells us about, again, the Treaty of Versailles. That is the focus of the question. So if I'm looking here, it says, and I'm just going to pick a really easy quote to talk about. It doesn't need to be difficult. Simplicity is key. Okay, and here it says, there is nothing to make the defeated Central empires into good neighbours. So nothing to make Germany, or the defeated, so nothing to make Germany into good neighbours. So that is the quote that I'm going to use that I can see. So what does it suggest if there's nothing that's going to make them into good neighbours? What does it suggest about the Treaty of Versailles? Is it positive? It's negative? Well, it suggests it's negative. It suggests it's more of a punishment rather than a peace deal. How do we know then it is a punishment? What do I know from my own knowledge that it's a punishment rather than a peace deal? Well, I know that it was humiliating. I'm just going to jot down some notes again. 100,000 men was punishing. It weakens Germany. It embarrassed them. It humiliated them. It led to further weaknesses in terms of them being punished when France invaded the Ruhr. And then that is my plan done. Okay, I've done a really brief plan. C suggest own knowledge of this source, C suggest own knowledge of this source. Again, remember, you use the writing to help you with the image. You use the writing to help you with the writing in the box. Okay? C suggest own knowledge is the way forwards for your source questions. So now you've kind of analysed the question, let's have a look at how we go through kind of getting these marks. And what's really important is that some of you will be thinking, the plan that I've just done, I'm not so sure on. I don't know if I could do that in the exam. And that's fine in your practice. But if you still feel like that, the most important thing is that you pick up marks. Remember, we want you to get U is not acceptable. We want to get you those 1s, those 2s, if your target grade is a 1 or a 2. And obviously more than that. But if you are struggling, the first thing you need to do is just tell me what you know about the question. So to get marks on the board, to get those 3-4 marks, you need to tell me what you know about the Treaty of Versailles. So I've said the Treaty of Versailles was agreed between Germany and the Big Three. The Treaty of Versailles hurt Germany as it made them pay lots of money. The Treaty of Versailles made Germany's army go to 100,000 men. The Treaty of Versailles was done because Clemenceau wanted revenge, but it was not as bad as it may have been as Britain and France stood up to Clemenceau. So as an examiner, what I see here is I see a lot of information about the Treaty of Versailles. So I can straight away give you marks for that. So I can tick that and give you marks. Now, if I look through, I can see that it mentions the Big Three. So remember, I'm looking for detail and specific detail. So I'll give myself detail. I would say that's not really detailed there, so I'm going to not tick that. 100,000 men, I'll tick that for detail. And Clemenceau wanting revenge, I'll tick that. So there is some detail. Now, ultimately, you are going to pick up marks for that. But the examiner will say there is no talking about sources B and C. Okay? So sources B and C, there isn't any. So that might drop you a few marks. So if someone was to say, I can see in source B this, you might pick up another mark. But ultimately, for you to pick up marks, you just need to tell me what you know about the history, and you'll get marks from doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how to kind of elevate our answer a little bit and how to get half marks, so 6 out of 12 marks. So what you will see here is me following the plan that I made in my sources booklet. So you will see here that for source B, in my plan, I've done C, suggest, own knowledge, and you will see that throughout. So for example, you will see here, it says in source B, I can see Clemenceau as a vampire sucking the blood out of Germany. So I've discussed what I can see in source B. I then said, or then thought, right, what do I need to underline here for my next sentence? And I've said, well, if it's Clemenceau as a vampire sucking the blood out of Germany, it suggests, so this is useful as it suggests that the Treaty of Versailles damaged Germany. Okay, that's what it suggests. And then I'm looking now, because if I look, I've talked about sources B, I now need my own knowledge. What do I know about how Germany was damaged? So I've underlined damaged Germany. Now, I know that Germany was damaged as they had to pay 6.6 billion in reparations. And remember, as an examiner, I'm looking for detail and specific detail. So I would say that is detailed. The reason that's not specific detail is because most people remember that one, so I'm just saying it's detailed. I also know Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles as it was a diktat. Now that is you using your knowledge, and it flows well. To move on to the next sort of path, you would do the same for source C. And you will see a similar structure. You will see, I will have said what I can see. So in source C, I can see it says there was nothing to make the defeated Central Empires into good neighbours. Why is that useful about the Treaty of Versailles? Well, I'm going to underline the fact that it's talking about, again, defeated Central. Nothing to make them, so it's nothing to make them into good neighbours. So it suggests that it's a punishment. So this is useful. It suggests the Treaty of Versailles was a punishment. I'm going to underline punishment. How do I know then from my own knowledge that the Treaty of Versailles was a punishment? So I know the Treaty of Versailles was more of a punishment as Germany were limited to 100,000 men, 6 battleships and no air force. All that together is specific detail, which meant they were weak. I also know that lots of land was taken off Germany. Now, that is more than achievable for all of you. Having said that, this will get you 4, 5 or 6 marks depending on the examiner, but we need to make sure and see how we can improve this. And the improvements, we can make quite a few. So, here we say, I know Germany was damaged as they had to pay 6.6 billion in reparations. Right, remember, what I would do to improve here, I'm going to do it in purple pen. So what? So what if they had to pay 6.6 billion in reparations? What is the damage done to the German people? I also know Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, as it was a diktat. Again, so what? So what if it was a diktat? How does that damage Germany? We need to expand on this to get higher marks. Here, I know the Treaty of Versailles was more of a punishment as Germany were limited to 100,000 men, 6 battleships and no air force, which meant they were weak. Well, so what if they were weak? How were they weak? They couldn't defend their borders. So what if they can't defend their borders? I also know that lots of land was taken off Germany. Like what? So detail. Okay, so all those things in purple, just like we do in school, I've purple pen improved my answer there and shown you how to get into the higher marks. So now what we're going to look at is how to get 9 out of 12 on question 2. For this question tends to be one of the ones we struggle with, one of the hardest. If you get 9 out of 12, that's a really, really strong mark, and that's what we should be aiming for. If you want those top grades, which is a level 9, okay, 9 out of 12 on this question is acceptable to get. So how do we go about getting this top marks? Well, there's a lot of things that I look for. First of all, here you can see the structure. So you need to have what you can see and what it suggests about the question, and you have to have own knowledge. So you can see seen suggest is orange, blue is own knowledge. You have to have keywords, you have to have details and specific detail. You have to have so what, and you know, this line here will show how to follow on. So I'm looking for all that in my answer and linking to the question, which is about the Treaty of Versailles. So first of all, just what you can see. So in source B, I can see Clemenceau as a vampire sucking the blood out of Germany. So I've told the examiner what I can see. So okay, that's correct. Good stuff. What I'm going to underline now is the fact that the vampire is sucking the blood out of Germany. Okay, because it's sucking the blood out of Germany, it's weakening Germany. So this is useful. It suggests the Treaty of Versailles damaged Germany, which it did, and that Clemenceau took the lead in damaging Germany. So the vampire sucking the blood out of Germany tells us that it was damaged, and the fact that Clemenceau's there tells us that Clemenceau took the lead in dealing with the damage. So this is what it suggests. Now, what I'm looking for now is for my own knowledge. I need to tell the reader, the examiner, how the Treaty of Versailles damaged Germany and how Clemenceau took the lead in dealing with Germany. And it needs to be specific detail, it needs to be so what, it needs to have keywords in it. So I start off by saying, I know Clemenceau took the lead in damaging Germany because Clemenceau wanted to make Germany suffer. because Germany had made France suffer during the First World War, with most of the damage in the First World War taking place in France. So in this sentence we have a lot of specific detail. If we just look here, Clemenceau wanted to make Germany suffer. Okay, that's one point. Germany had made France suffer during the First World War. More own knowledge. Most of the damage in the First World War taking place in France. More own knowledge. That is a really, really strong, specific, detailed sentence. Now, what I could go on to do now is I could go on to talk about a different part of own knowledge. Okay, I could go on to talk about 100,000 men, for example, and how that punished Germany. But to get the top marks, you need to follow on and you need to do so what. So what you'll see here is your so what. And remember, so what, usually the examiner will look for means, led to, as a result. So there are key words to use for so what. So what if most of the damage took place in France? Well, as a result, Clemenceau made sure the Treaty of Versailles damaged Germany, with Germany being made to pay 6.6 billion in reparations. Absolutely. But so what if they were made to pay 6.6 billion in reparations? Well, this led to Germany being damaged economically as the German government had to raise taxes on German people. Absolutely. But so what? So what if they raised taxes on the German people, further damaging the relationship between the Weimar government and the German people? Now, if you did this and just one paragraph like this would get you 6 out of 12 marks. So you need to do another paragraph in the other source to get 9 out of 12. Now, what's important here is that it follows the key words. So you can see reparations here, you can see Weimar government here, specific details, so what, it follows on, each sentence follows on from one another. But what you'll notice is something I'm going to highlight in purple, which really shows it to be very strong in the eyes of the examiner, which might even get you 10 out of 12. And it's the fact that my argument focuses on this word damage. Okay? And what you'll see here is that I keep linking back to that word damage. Look how many times I've used it. Damaging. Damage. 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 So my answer runs throughout as well. So it makes it a really, really strong answer. And if you go back to the plan, you can see that it just follows the plan that we made. The C, suggest, own knowledge. And you can see the amount of own knowledge that I've used here. So let's have a look at source C then. And we're going to just follow and look for the exact same things. So in source C, I can see it says there was nothing to make the defeated Central Empires into good neighbours. Okay? Yeah, it says that, so I can tick that off. Happy days. So, what do I do now? So I know I need to follow on from this sentence with a suggestion. So, there's nothing to make them into good neighbours. So what if there's nothing to make Germany into good neighbours? What does that suggest about the Treaty of Versailles? Well, it suggests the Treaty of Versailles was a punishment rather than a deal to keep the peace. So again, I've said what it suggests. And I've said it was a punishment. And what you should hopefully see is us focusing in my own knowledge now around that word punishment. Just like I did damaged here, we're going to talk about punishment here. Now, you don't always need to do this, but it's a nice way to kind of keep focused on your ideas. So, own knowledge then. So, I know the Treaty of Versailles was more of a punishment, with Germany being forced to take the blame for the entirety of the First World War. So they absolutely did. There's detail there. I'm linking it to that idea of punishment, and straight away I'm starting on my own knowledge. So what if Germany were forced to take the blame? So it's that idea of taking the blame that I need to talk about now. So what? This meant that Germany were punished on an international level, as they were humiliated in not only being defeated, but taking the blame for the death of millions. Okay, so further explains, why that was a punishment for Germany, why taking the blame was a punishment for Germany. Again, linking it to that word punishment with some detail. Now what I've decided to do is I can't use so what really anymore, because there's nothing really for me to add here. So what I've done is I've gone back to punishment and said, right, how else do I know that Germany was punished? So it's almost like a piece of new own knowledge. So the own knowledge for this part here stops, and we use another piece of own knowledge. So furthermore, I know the reduction of Germany's military to 100,000 men was a punishment to Germany, as the German military had been a key part of German pride, and the reduction in number took this pride away. So here I can see Germany's military to 100,000 men, detail, linking to how it was a punishment and who it was a punishment for the German military, is it been a key part in German pride, and it took that pride away. It was also a long-term punishment. So again, linking to how else this military was a punishment, as it meant Germany would not be able to defend itself from France, absolutely. Such as when France invaded the Ruhr in 1923, specific detail, meaning that Germany would live in a state of fear from invasion and violence. So again, all this own knowledge. So the first piece of own knowledge is about blame. The second piece of own knowledge is about the armament, the military, and the impact of that. And you can see the specific detail running through. And if I was to say here, I could have stopped here and said, and the reduction in number took the pride away. But I didn't. I talked about another type of punishment that it dealt with, as it meant Germany was not able to defend itself from France. Okay, I could have stopped there, but I didn't. I said to myself, well, so what if it wasn't able to defend itself from France? Well, when France invaded the Ruhr in 1923, the German nation ended up living in a state of fear and violence, and that was a punishment. And that is how you get a really solid answer on this question.